Brian Powell of I Run Far here with Amy Sproston before the 2017 Western States 100. How are you, Amy?
I'm great. How are you?
All right. You have run this race, if I'm not mistaken, 4 of the last 6 years.
That's correct.
You kind of feel like a fixture here now. Does it feel that way to you?
A little bit, yeah. And it was really nice to take a break of about 2 years.
Yeah.
And then it was great to come back last year.
1 year where you weren't entered, I don't think, and 1 year where you...
Well, I'd gotten 3rd in 2013, and then I tore my hamstring at Comrades and had to walk the last 15 miles, and so States was just not a possibility.
Happening.
So I was out for 14 then, and then didn't run it in 15, and then raced back in 16.
Came back, yeah. So you have 2/8, a second, and a third in that stretch, I think, and...
Yep.
What brings you back? I mean, because you've accomplished a lot here.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. I mean, a little cliche again, but it's the community, it's the history of the race. It's also just really nice to have a big early season goal to kind of keep me motivated in training, because I do, I've just got a lot going on in terms of work and travel, and so it's good to have something on the schedule to actually keep me racing.
Speaking of keeping things on the schedule to keep you racing, I was only able to find one result for you since Western States last year. You know, you won Silver State 50 last month, and
yep.
Is that it?
Yeah, I mean, I did States last year and I felt great. I'd had some hamstring problems leading up to States, but at States I had no issues, felt great in recovery, and then about 3 weeks before UTMB I started to feel some niggles. And by the time UTMB, like the week of UTMB, like running 4 miles in Chamonix was painful. So it was really dumb of me to start UTMB last year, and then I mean, I stopped in part for some, like I was just vomiting and whatnot, but when I got to where I could eat again, I also just, like, my hamstrings were toast to the point that I just couldn't pick up running anymore. So I knew it was going to be a 30-mile walk, and then after trying to recover from UTMB, like my hamstrings, I got an MRI and I just had some tearing and kind of like chronic tearing and fraying at the attachment. So I really didn't run all winter. I took a good 3 months off. And
how have the hamstrings felt since then? Are you...
You know, I was really cautious, and I feel like it's kind of a chronic injury for, like, I feel like women have a lot of longevity in the sport, but the one thing that kind of takes people out is like chronic hamstring issues for women. And so kind of keeping that in mind, I was really careful of trying to like listen to my body and not like run through pain in the winter and spring. And so I did a really slow build up back. And so my hamstrings are great.
Any, rehab or, strengthening or anything in particular?
I see a PT every 2 weeks kind of year round.
Okay.
So I'm always kind of working on stuff. But yeah, they're good. I feel pretty healthy. I mean, I feel healthy in general. So I'm not as fit as I want to be, but I'm never as fit as I want to be. I think I'm a little less fit than I usually am less fit than I want to be. But yeah, I'm doing UTMB again this year, and whereas I'm usually pretty consistent here, I'm a train wreck at UTMB. So I'm really hoping that I may not be as fit here, but that will work my way into UTMB, and then I'm doing Cappadocia and then a race in Guatemala. So I'm hoping to maybe have a better end of the season this year than... Sort
of saving yourself a bit?
Yeah.
But you do have a lot of experience here, and especially in a day where there's snow in the beginning and heat later, like, that means a lot. I mean, on Saturday, Sunday, what do you think the best you can do this year is?
Even though I don't feel quite as fit as last year, I mean, you always want to kind of go after what you've done in the past. So last year I broke 19 for the first time, which I was really excited about, and I've been pretty consistent. If you look at my times from 11, 12, 13, and 14, and granted one was a snow course, one was a cold year, they all were kind of different, and one was a really hot year, and then last year was kind of warm.
Benign.
So they've all been very different years, but my times have been within like 1854 and like 1936. So
and there's been a general trend in the positive direction.
Trend, but like, slower than faster than middle than faster. So I mean, a trend, but like I'm pretty consistent. So I'm really just hoping. And one of those years I'd strained a calf and had not run super high mileage. So yeah, I'm hoping that course knowledge and consistency will hopefully work this year as well.
And maybe you don't have your A game. Like, is top 5 still in the?
I would never have guessed. I don't think anyone would have guessed I would have been second last year. Or, I mean, maybe when I was third, that maybe was more expected, but last year I don't think anyone would have picked me for second. I mean, maybe 5 people did in the the pre-picks or whatever. So I don't think people would normally pick me for podium, but I've podiumed here the last 2 times I've run it. So I'm not saying I don't think I really have a chance at podium, but you never know how the day is going to unfold, and so there's always a chance, I guess.
Yeah.
So
now that you've had these, series of strong finishes and consistent and like in a very smart way. Like, do you at all look at like, I guess now Megan Laws, but like Megan Arbogast and like kind of that history, and like, could it be like you're sort of building in that direction to continue progressing and
I mean, I would love to have the longevity that Megan has. I think we all would.
Yeah.
And again, I think States is just a great, like, I don't like to go back to races generally, although I've gone to States several times and I keep kind of banging my head on the wall that is,
which is a different story
to me.
Yeah.
But there is something to be said for like that early season, like historic big 100. So yeah, I would love to potentially keep coming back here and trying to continue to improve. Again, this year I'm kind of hoping that I'll kind of just stay in the top 10, like maybe, sneak my way in next year, so that maybe next year, assuming injury and work travel and whatnot allow me to really like focus on having that like perfect day at States.
Yeah. Speaking of work travel, it's something that I deal with in trying to be a runner myself, and you definitely do. Like, how much have you traveled so far this year, and how do you fit any training in with it?
I mean, since December, I've gone to 3 separate trips to Africa. So Uganda, Rwanda, Colombia. In March, I went around the world in 12 days, where I stopped in London, Delhi, and Myanmar for 4 days each. I was somewhere I went to Costa Rica in May for a race. So I did do another race. I did a 50K in Costa Rica the week after Silver State. And then I was just in Uganda for work 2 weeks ago. That's one thing I really enjoy about running, is you can run anywhere. And I don't have that, I need to be on a trail, or I'm happy on a treadmill, I'm happy on the road, I'm happy on a trail.
Because some of the places you go probably aren't the best place to even be out by yourself running in the roads, or even...
No, but I mean, I don't think I've ever been, since I went back to Afghanistan last year and did an outdoor running camp in Bamiyan. That was the only country I'd never actually run in. Yeah. I mean, I've run in the streets in South Sudan, I've run in Iraq, I've run in a lot of places that are, I mean, like when you're running in Kurdish Iraq, you're getting a lot of looks. So it may not be comfortable, but it's not dangerous, and so I almost enjoy that kind of like trying to, get people to start seeing women running in those types of environments. So
pushing perspective a little bit.
Training's not perfect, but you can usually get out anywhere you go.
Gotcha. And even coming back from trips like that, like, leaves one pretty tired. Like, how do you transition back into trying to have a good routine again when you're home? I mean,
I unfortunately joined Strava like a year ago, and I had avoided Strava for years, and because I think a lot of runners are competitive. So then, and I do enjoy like going to new countries and making sure I try to tag at least one course record in every country I go to. But I think the one thing about the travel is it does give you forced rest, and so like if you look at Strava, like I don't have the highest mileage of anyone they're predicting for the top 10. I'm probably at the bottom in terms of mileage. I'm averaging like 60 or 70 miles a week, whereas a lot of the women are averaging 120 or so, 100 to 120. So I'm definitely not overtrained, and I think that's good thing about travel, is it does, every time I go to Africa, there's 2 travel days on the way there and there's 2 travel days on the way back. Sometimes I can sneak in a run during travel, often not, so you have kind of those forced rest periods, but I think is actually not a bad thing at the end of the day. I think a lot of people probably don't rest enough. So.
Gotcha. And what are you excited for on Saturday?
I'm just kind of excited, kind of to see where I'm at, how I compare to this field. Again, it's really just the energy of States. It's kind of hard to explain to people that haven't run States, but I mean, to me, the course is not the most interesting course that I've done. There's parts of it I don't love. There's parts of it I do really like. But it's, coming into Robinson Flat and just having like the crowds there, and it's not like a UTMB size crowds by any means, but it's people and it's a really kind of fun community, and just the energy and the excitement. So I'm really excited for those, kind of seeing my crew and enjoying the heat and So.
Enjoying and hating the heat at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I always say that I love heat, and I like that feeling when you get in a hot car and or like that feeling when you're just about to start having heat stroke. I used to try, when I lived in DC, I'd try to run like at lunch downtown, or like kind of that hot, like baking time of the day. So when I'm around it, I love it. The problem is Bend has been I've been back for 2 weeks, and so I came from Costa Rica and Kampala, which were both warm, but then the weekend back in Bend, the first weekend, it was snowing. So,
You're maybe
Bend has not been super hot.
Gotcha.
So.
Well, I think you'll deal with the heat.
Yeah.
Best of luck out there, Amy, and have
Thank you.
fun.